What is up, guys? It's Michael here and welcome back to FudgeMuppet. Today we have a brand new Skyrim Remastered build which you have voted for. With new skills, fresh perks and a fleshed out backstory, gather round and prepare yourselves for this dangerous Dunmer. This is the Morag Tong Assassin. After the devastation caused by the eruption of Red Mountain, a young warrior will rise from the ashes of an endangered guild to be the greatest assassin Skyrim has ever seen. The Morag Tong Assassin follows the strict teaching of Mafala and his people and was molded from birth to be the ultimate killer. This master of bow, blade, magic, and stealth will take any contract no matter how perilous. That's because no mortal in Tamriel can escape him. Using a mixture of tactics, this assassin is as versatile as they come and wields two rare and unique weapons. One of these is the Ebony Blade. For a detailed guide on how to get your hands on this smooth weapon, check out our buddy Camelworks channel. Over there you can find a brand new guide on the weapon, and be sure to subscribe for more of his sensational content. Also, before we get into the build, make sure you go to the comments to vote for next week's remastered build. Your choices are the Bandit and the Soldier of Fortune. With that said, here's the Morag Tong Assassin's race, standing stone, and stats. This assassin is a dark elf from Morrowind. As a member of the Dunmer, he tends to be judged by the other races simply due to his race, but it's not all bad. The Morag Tong Assassin is naturally adept in illusion, light armor, and sneak, gaining +5 to each of these. He also has the ability to call on his ancestors' wrath, which once per day for a minute sets any opponents who come too close on fire for 8 points of damage per second. He also has 50% resistance to fire. Early on, the Lava Stone works well for the assassin's diverse skill set, and the Shadow Stone can be useful too, allowing him to turn invisible for 60 seconds once per day. But with the end game, as you've probably predicted by now, it's got to be the Atronach Stone. The 50% spell absorption and 50 extra points of magicka are great, and due to the fact that he will rarely be casting continually in combat, the 50% regen reduction is barely noticeable. Plus, once the invisibility spell is acquired, the Shadow Stone will become obsolete. As for his stat spread, he'll have 40% health to stay alive if you're caught sneaking around, 30% magicka to guarantee you're always prepared to control the situation with your illusion spells, and 30% stamina for sneak rolls, power attacks, bow time slows, and sprinting. The Morag Tong Assassin was born underground, in the tombs and caverns beneath the Dunmer city of Blacklight. He was part of the third generation of Morag Tong hiding in the shadows. His grandfather had pioneered the move underground, choosing to preserve the lives of the clan members at the cost of living isolated from sunlight and the rest of civilization. The young assassin would stare up at the cavern ceiling most nights, dreaming of exploring the surface. Many of the older Morag Tong members left the cave system for assassination contracts or for dealings with the people of Blacklight, but as a youth with little to offer in terms of diplomacy and combat ability, the Morag Tong Assassin was shut away from the world. He soon decided that his best way to get to the surface as soon as possible was to dedicate himself to his training, becoming an undeniable warrior and taking whatever assassination contract came his way. The Morag Tong Assassin realized that dedicating himself to his training wasn't so hard after all. Underground there was little to keep you occupied, and the harsh conditions of their living environment meant everyone was focused solely on surviving and enhancing their combat skills. These Morag Tong would rely on their second-to-none assassin abilities to not fade into obscurity. Every day the young Morag Tong Assassin would eat his bland morning meal and then make his way to training. He dressed himself in the chitinous armor of the guild and headed to the practice ground where his master waited patiently. As a boy, desperate for some form of entertainment, he loved to train. Even in failure, he forgot about the dreary sprawl of damp rock providing the backdrop to his entire life, and he loved every moment of it. When many of the other children rebelled and complained, as most children do, the assassin remained focused. By the time he was 10, the Morag Tong Assassin was swinging the blade of his katana with phenomenal precision. If his master was capable of expressing emotion, he would most certainly be smirking at his potential. The assassin would linger when most of the others had returned home and would practice his speed and precision with the bow. He would repeatedly nock and draw arrows over and over again until his fingers developed rope burn from the bowstring, and when he finished with his bow, he would slide his katana from its scabbard, reveling in the satisfying sound of steel against leather. The dim light of Blacklight's caverns were brightened slightly by a row of 10 candles, and in one sweep of his blade, the assassin would extinguish every last one of them, slicing the wick from undisturbed wax. The first time he did this successfully, the darkness was intruded by his master applauding, and that was the day the Morag Tong Assassin knew he would soon be emerging to the surface to fulfill his first contract. His prediction was soon proved right, and his first contract took him to Kvatch in Cyrodiil. The journey journey was a joy for the assassin. As the ashy skies of Morrowind gave way to the lush green expanses of Cyrodiil, the fact that he was on his way to kill a man was the last thing on his mind. He had hired a horse for the trip and came into contact with many other races along his travels. As he expected, similar to the values instilled in him by his people, the other races seemed to look at him with unjustified disdain. This didn't concern him though, as anyone who had a problem with him would suffer if they meddled with his affairs. It wasn't as if everyone in Cyrodiil hated Dark Elves, but it also seemed like some people weren't too pleased to see him. His commitment to the Morag Tong cause and his love for Mephal's teaching was all that mattered in the end though. After completing the contract and returning to Blacklight, he soon found himself in high esteem with the guild, and he was sent to Stormhold and Daggerfall, Bravil and Dragonstar, and finally his latest contract in Bruma. His masters told him of a bandit leader, formerly a Redoran official, who had taken a group of marauders to an abandoned fort just north of the city. He was to pay for his crimes, and the Morag Tong assassin was sent to deliver justice, but told to be wary, as the bandit leader had evaded capture or killing many times prior. The assassin made his way up the northern roads of Cyrodiil and thanked his chitin armor for being so thick and bulky against the evening chill. When he closed in on the fort, he climbed the stone wall at the rear of the fortress, using the stones as footholds where they jutted out and cracked from years of sleet and snow. He climbed the battlements and peered over the parapets, scouting out the situation. There were a few seemingly undisciplined bandits lining the ramparts. One was leaning over the edge, attempting to spit as far as he could. Another was slumped on a stool with a crossbow in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. Never a good combination in the hands of a criminal. And the last was, from what the assassin could see, sleeping where he stood, somehow balancing himself against the wind. He'd obviously had enough practice. The only real threat was in the corner of the courtyard where some bloodhounds were chained in the kennels. He would have to get in without alarming them. Thankfully, the wind would blow away the smell of blood when he killed the guardsman. The leader must be inside. The Morag Tong assassin dispatched of the men lining the walls quickly. The last one, who stood sleeping, was a very easy kill. He slipped inside the fortress, and the battering of the wind was replaced by a silence that was almost overwhelming. He had been deafened by the wind for far too long. He navigated his way to the fireplace where the leader sat alone with a bottle of mead. Without hesitation, the assassin drew his dagger and cut the man's throat, muffling his cries with the other hand. Just as he did though, the terrifying sound of barking came from outside. How could they hear that? He had to get out of that place, and quickly. The assassin ran back to the courtyard. By the kennel, holding one of the assassin's arrows for the dogs to smell, was a guard he must have missed. He scolded himself for not seeing this soldier. The assassin ran for the hills, heading north in the hopes that the hounds would lose his scent. Most of them did, but one closed in on him and leapt at him, biting down hard on his calf and making deep cuts to the bone. The Morag Tong assassin screamed and pulled out his knife, burying it to the hilt in the hound's head. He wouldn't be able to go far on this leg, and it was susceptible to infection. He managed to lose them with enough certainty that he started a fire and used his blade to cauterize the wound. It would stop infection well enough, but the fire drew unwanted attention, and the assassin was caught on the border by an Imperial patrol. After escaping Helgen, the Morag Tong assassin plans to return to Blacklight to turn in his contract, but is caught up in all of the things going on in Skyrim. If you would like, you can travel to the pass near Windhelm to roleplay the assassin touching base with his guild and completing the mission, but either way, his time in Skyrim is enough to guarantee that he returns to take an active role in everything that is going on. He will also sense Mephal's presence in the province and will aim to seek her and her artifact out while following her teachings and those of Boethia and Azura closely. The reclamations are what the Dhamma believe in since the Red Year, so while he will follow their values, he will shun other Daedric princes, such as Mehrunes Dagon, Molag Bal, Malakath, and Sheogorath, who represent the House of Troubles, the antithesis of the Dhamma belief system. Long story short, the Morag Tong follow the nationalist belief system of the Dhamma, viewing themselves above the other races, and this will bleed into the Morag Tong assassin's roleplaying. And with the Dragonborn rumors floating around, he will have all the more reason to seek power and neglect the petty concerns of others. In terms of factions, he will obviously follow the Dragonborn main storyline for the power and prophecy attached to it. As a member of the Morag Tong, he will seek to destroy the Dark Brotherhood, who are direct competitors and enemies. He will complete the Dawnguard DLC, siding with the Dawnguard, fueled by his hatred for Molag Bal and anything associated with him. This hatred means killing vampires is a hobby of the Morag Tong assassin. He will complete the Dragonborn DLC in order to get the armor and to get to Solstheim, where many of his people live. He will have to fight the Morag Tong while helping House Redoran though, but he will have no choice as this differing sect of the guild are hostile and don't allow him to explain that he is actually a member of the clan in Blacklight. The College of Windhold may also prove worthwhile as he may want to improve his illusion magic abilities. With his backstory, roleplaying, and factions in mind, let's now have a look at the Morag Tong Assassin's skills, perks, spells, and playstyle. The assassin has been trained to be the ultimate diverse combatant. He is adept in many different skills. Therefore, the skills for this build will be two-handed, archery, illusion, light armor, and sneak. One thing to mention is that even though the Morag Tong Assassin uses a dagger, there's no need to invest in one-handed as the sneak perks will make the dagger very effective without needing any one-handed perks. Now, before we look at the perks for each of these skills, let's first get into the illusion spells the assassin will be using. The spells at his disposal will be to enhance stealth and complement his playstyle. The first of these, of course, is invisibility. When dual cast, it renders the user invisible for 75 seconds, but will be broken by attacking or casting spells. Like invisibility, the Morag Tong Assassin will dual cast any spells related to pacify, fear, and frenzy. The aim for his spells will be to get the element of surprise on his foes or to disorient them in any way before he strikes. But now that's clear, here are the essential perks. Candles across the continent will be running in fear when the Morag Tong Assassin pulls out his two-handed katana, or they would be if they had legs and weren't inanimate objects, but you get the point. The assassin is precise and deadly with his katana. From the two-handed skill tree, you should take the middle branch up to sweep, taking devastating blow along the way. It doesn't matter if it's a candle wick or an Argonian scaly noggin, with a devastating blow perk, the assassin will be decapitating them, and standing power attacks will do 25% bonus damage. Also with the sweep perk, sideways power attacks will strike every enemy in reach, not just the first one it hits. Next up is the Morag Tong's favorite, archery. In the darkness of the caverns beneath Blacklight, the assassin's keen eye and years of training allowed him to knock and draw his bow at lightning fast speeds and allowed him to shoot things out of mid-air. That's a hard enough feat in broad daylight for most of Tamriel's finest archers. From this skill tree, we recommend taking everything. Take all ranks of steady hand and overdraw, but only one out of the 3 ranks of critical shot. With quick shot, you can experience his drawing speed firsthand. You'll be able to draw your bow 30% faster. With bullseye, there's a 15% chance that an arrow will paralyze the target for a few seconds. Combined with your illusion spells, your adversaries will be out of action or turning against their own ranks as often as they will be attacking you. On the topic of illusion spells, the illusion skill is next. The Morag Tong Dark Elves utilize their natural talent with magicka to assist their work and make their kills far easier to execute. From this skill tree, we suggest taking everything except for Master Illusion, as the assassin will not need any Master Illusion spells. Quiet casting is handy for not blowing your cover when you're being stealthy, while perks like Animage and Master of the Mind let your spells influence animals, Daedra, undead, automatons, and just about anything you come across. The Morag Tong use a very unique style of armor that you won't see anywhere else in Skyrim, and as you'd expect, our assassin will be using a full set of it. And this armor comes under the light armor category, so from this tree you should go for the lot. Matching set is very useful for builds like this where all pieces of armor correspond. This perk grants a 25% armor bonus on top of the 100% bonus you're already getting from all ranks of Agile Defender. Lastly, we have Sneak. Even though the Morag Tong Assassin is more than capable of killing everything around him with his bow and katana, he wouldn't be an assassin if he couldn't carry out some of his contracts quietly. From this skill tree, you should opt for everything once again. Muffled movement works well with quiet casting and invisibility, keeping you quiet as you maneuver around, and Assassin's Blade means that while sneaking, dagger attacks do 15 times as much damage. This insane amount of damage is what we meant by not needing one-handed perks. If you can utilize illusion and sneaking to stay undetected, you could potentially kill everything with your dagger alone. With all the spells, skills, and perks mentioned, you must be wondering now about the Morag Tong Assassin's playstyle. Well, the assassin will be prepared for everything. He'll have his bow to take out lookouts and sentries from range. He'll have his dagger to sneak around, dispatching of enemies cleanly and quietly. He'll have his illusion spells to cause mayhem and chaos when needed, or to calm rowdy enemies down, or even just to slip by unseen. And he'll have his two-handed sword to rend the limbs from the rest. There's no surprises in the gear section, as I'm sure you figured out. This loyal and devout Morag Tong Assassin will wear the full Morag Tong Assassin light armor set. As for weapons, he will carry the Ebony Blade, the Daedric artifact of Mephala, an Ebony Dagger, Ebony Arrows, and the Dwarven Black Bow of Fate. For more information on the blade, don't forget to check out Camelwork's video down below. Smash that subscribe button if you enjoyed the video, folks, and give it a like to show your support or face the wrath of Mephala. This was the latest FudgeMuppet Skyrim Remastered build, the Morag Tong Assassin. As you know, links to our social media accounts can be found in the description. We'd love to hear more from you guys over there. Also in the description, you can find timestamps to help you navigate the video. Finally, get down to the comment section to vote for which remastered build comes next. Your choices are the Bandit and the Soldier of Fortune, so get voting. As always, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. I'm Michael, and I'll nerd out with you again very soon.